Yeah, so today we'll discuss about 2 points. Probably in this video, we'll discuss about how to use select class, how to work with the select class in Selenium. Okay, so using select class, then there are various things that you can perform. One is select value from a list box. At the same time, select multiple values from a list box, and then we can also do unselect the values from the list box, multi-selection list box, values from multi-selection list box. Also, okay, check whether a value has been selected or not in the list box. Then okay, so you can also see verify what and all values are currently selected in the list box, and what is the current value selected, or what and all the values. If it is multi-selection, there might be multiple values selected. So if you want to get what and all the values selected, and then you can use this select class. Also, if you want to check whether particular value is correctly selected or not, then you can use that. And yeah, so these are various things that you can perform with select class, and then let's understand how do we use the select class. Okay, so in the Selenium API, that means in the Selenium library, then we do have one more class that's called as a select class. And the select class normally used for working with the list boxes. Select class is used for working with the list boxes which are defined using select tag. So select class is used for working with the list boxes, nothing but drop down list, which are defined with the select tag. Remember this point. Okay, so to work with the select class, then precondition is the list box must have to be defined with the select tag. But there will be another topic we will be discussing about. Okay, so how do we select the values from a list box which is not defined by using select tag? In some of the HTML pages, list boxes will be defined by using select tag. In some of the pages, in some applications, they will use custom tags like div, span, ul, li, and all to define the list boxes. Okay, so we will be discussing both. Okay, how to work with the select class and when it works and when it doesn't work. Then also we discuss about how to select the values from the list box without using select class also. Okay, so with the select class and without select class. For now, we focus on how to use the select class. Okay. So further, let me just explain you the requirement we have taken to understand the select class. See, we have defined a small HTML page here. We have defined a small HTML page with the two list boxes. One is a country, and even second one also country. Okay, and the first one is a single selection list box. The first one is single selection list box. Okay, now, yeah. Okay, so these are the list of items that we do have, different countries. Then we will understand how do we select value from this. Also, the second list box is multi-selection list box. then which will allow us to select the multiple values from the list box. So first one is a single selection dropdown, second one is a multi-selection. So we have to work with both of them. Okay, and we have to use select class for that. And as just now I told that select class is one of the utility class in the Selenium, which will be used for working with the list boxes. Okay, is that clear? So let's start with, first let me create a new class in our project. Then, I'll just create a new class called working with list boxes using select class. And then we also discuss about without select class as well. Then let me create main method. Right. So first what we have to do is we have to launch the application. Let me copy paste the code which we already have. So I'm just doing a copy paste of the code. And the page URL will be different here. So let me just do that. Okay, then. Now, let me even do the maximize. So driver.manage.window.maximize. Let me maximize. Okay. So this code will just launch the browser. Then in order to work with the list box, okay, so using select class, then let's go with the step by step. First, what we have to do is to work with first what we do, we'll work with the first list box. This one is select your country. Okay. And you have to select a particular country, whatever the country that we provide as an input. Like let's say if I give Australia as an input, it has to select Australia from the list box. If I give India as an input, then it has to select India from the list box. If I give Sri Lanka, then it has to select Sri Lanka. If I give Pakistan, it has to select Pakistan. So like that. Okay, so we have to select a country from the list box, and I will be giving the input as country to select. I'm just giving the input here. I'll give as an India or any other country name will be changing. Okay, so I have to select this value from this particular list box. Okay, how do we do that? Then since, there are two ways. Either you can use select class or you can, do it without using select class as well. But for now, we will be using select class. Okay. So to work with the select class, first you need to create the instance of select class. Okay, so you need to create an object with the select class. So you say select, you give any variable name, just I will give the variable name as select only, or you can just give as a list. Then you have to create the instance. You say new select. Now, when you create the instance of select, then what you have to do is you need to give the web element as an input. You see here, okay, so it is asking for the web element as an input. When you create the instance of select class internally has a constructor, a parameterized constructor, which will take web element as an input, which means that when you create the instance of the select class, you must have to provide the web element as an input. Okay, web element. Which web element you need to provide? The web element is nothing but here, the list box which you want to work with. Whatever the list box that you want to work with, first you need to capture that web element and you need to pass that web element, nothing but that list box, to this select class instance. So which means that in order to work with the select class, first you need to capture that list box. Now we need to work with the country list, right? Okay, so then let us do one thing. First, let us capture this list box, the drop down. Let me inspect this. Now, okay, so when I inspect, you see, this is the list box. Go ahead. Right? So this is the list box, the first list box. Now inside that we have the options. Each list box has a, this list box has multiple options. Each option is nothing but a value in the list box. Okay. Now, let me capture. We do have ID right here. So we can identify that list box by using ID. Then what I do is I'll take that list box is a country list equal to driver dot find element by dot ID of the country list. Resident country. Okay, you can see here. Now I'm capturing that list box now. I'm capturing the list box here and I'm storing it in this country list. You have to pass this web element to the select class instance. Okay, so in order to work with the select class, the values or unselect the values, then you have to first create the instance of the select class. Okay, then how do we select the values from that list box now is use the select class instance. Then we have got three methods. We have got three methods to select the value from the list box. What are they? You see, one is something called select by visible text, something called select by index, something called select by value. Select by visible text, select by index, select by value. So we have got three methods. There are other methods also available, but those are for deselecting. That means unselecting the values, but there are few more. Okay, so which we'll see all of them. Okay, but to select the values from the list box, select class provides three methods for us. One is select by visible text, select by index, and select by value. Now, let us go with one by one method. First, let us understand the select by visible text. And what is the input for select by visible text? You see select by visible text as an argument. The argument is nothing but the string. Right here, string of text. Now, so let us use this. Then, okay, so select by visible text. We have to provide an input. That input is nothing but the string. That input is nothing but the string here. Now, which string that we need to provide? Which string that we need to provide depends on what value that you need to select. Here, the text is nothing but for each option, how this list box and items have been defined in this list box. How these items have been defined using option, right? Each option is nothing but a value. Now, for each option, we have got inner text. So this Afghanistan is what? Inner text of this option. Australia is the inner text of the option. Bangladesh is inner text. England is inner text. India is inner text. New Zealand is inner text. This inner text is something that what you see when you open the drop down here, when you pull the drop down, right? So in order to select the value by using select by visible text, then you need to provide the inner text of the option. Nothing but what you see for each option, whatever the text that you see here, right? That text you need to provide. So select by visible text will select the value based on the text that is visible for us for each option. So what is the text visible now here? For this option, what is the visible text? India. For this option, what is the visible text? England. For this option, what is the visible text? Bangladesh. Okay. Now, so here I have given India. So India is a visible text, right? Okay. So I will give India as an input. Okay. Now let me do one thing. After launching the application, let me give some sleep, time so that you can observe clearly. I'll just give thread.sleep 5 seconds. So after launching the page, it will wait for 5 seconds so that you can see. Right? So it's it's selection. Okay, let me run this. Probably it might take a little time to launch the browser. For very first time. Yeah, it's launching. Now you can see select your select your country, right? You can see that the value has been selected here. So which value has been selected? India. India has been selected, right? Okay, let me do one thing. Let me change the text here. I'll give as Australia now. By default, the value which was selected was select. You can see that Australia has been selected. So the first method in select class to select a value is by using a method called, the method is select by visible text. So select by visible text method is used for select by visible text is used for selecting an option by using the visible text or the inner text, you can say inner text of the option. Okay, but remember this is very case sensitive. Now you say I have got India, right? It was selecting. So earlier we have seen that when I've given India, so it was selecting. But I will give India, but in a different case. Now I'm giving India and I also is in lowercase. But when it defined in the list box, it was uppercase. Right? Okay, let me run this now and see what happens. Let's see what happens here. It was not selecting. You can see it's not selected. Right? So it's not selected. It's remain default value. Nothing but select here. Yeah. Okay. So actually why it has taken too much time? Because we have used implicit wait. And now you see there is an exception generated. Right? So there is an exception generated. Because, okay, so every option is a web element. Since, we have used implicit wait here, then, what is implicit wait, right? So when we use implicit wait and when we use find element and find elements, in case if no element found with the given locator, it will wait till that implicit timeout, whatever the timeout we have given. So if the element doesn't come even after given time, here we have given 20 seconds, then it will throw the exception, right? So in case, when you use select by visible text and when you provide the text to be selected, I've given this, right? And if no element is found, no option is found with the given text, whatever the text we have given, if no option is found with the given text, then it will throw an exception called no such element exception. Cannot locate the option with the text India. India was there. India is there in that list box. But why it is not found? Because it's a case sensitive. You must have to give the text in the same case how it is defined for the option. In case if the text whatever you have given, visible text whatever you have given to select, none of the option has got the text, then it will throw the exception, no such element exception. 2 points you need to remember when you use the visible text. There should be no spelling mistake. You should give the value same as how it is defined in the HTML source. for the option. You have to give full text only, and case sensitive, it is case sensitive. If you give partial value, incomplete value, or if you give the value in a different case, then it will not work. You will get the exception as no such element exception. Is that clear? So this is selectable text. Now there is another option, that's another method in the list, select class to select a value from, from that list box. Method is select by index. There is other method called select by index. Now for select by index, we need to provide the input as an int. We have to provide int input. Okay. Now, what is the index, right? Normally we have used arrays or collections and all. We know the meaning of index. So generally what happens is here, this is the drop down, right? Internally, every option will have an index. But that's something that we can't see it, and it's automatically defined internally, and it's a position. Index is nothing but the position here. The first option will have the index as a 0. Second option will have the index number 1. Third option will have index number 2, like index number 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. And in case, okay, you don't know the complete text, and I don't want to select a particular value here, I will just give the position. I want to select the second value in the list box. I want to select the third value in the list box. Doesn't matter what is the value it is, but I just want to select first value. I want to select second value. I want to select third value. If you want to select the value randomly by position, not by the text, but just by the position, then you can use select by index. Now I've given select by index of 3. That means which value it will be selected? It should select a fourth value, right? So don't know whatever it could be, but it will select fourth value. It selected Bangladesh. Let's see why the Bangladesh has been selected. First value is select, second value Afghanistan, third value Australia, fourth value is Bangladesh. And if I give index as 5 or 6 or 7, now it should select 7th value. So it will select 7th value now, because I have given index number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So total we have 11 values. I will give index number as 11. Nothing but 12th value I want to select. But we don't have a 12th value, right, in this? We don't have 12th value, right? So we have got only 11 values. And if I give index number 11, that something does not exist, what do we get? See, we know what happens if we give the index number that does not exist. It's not selected. You can see that there is an exception. What is the exception we got? No such element exception. Cannot locate the option with the index 11. Because we have only 11 options in that list box, and the max index that can be used is 10. Because index number 10 is nothing but the 11th one. Right? So select by index. So select by index is used for selecting the value from a list box by using the index number, the position of the option. Next. There is another method that's called as select by value. select by value. And you have to provide the string as an input. Now, what is select by value? What is select by value is normally for the list boxes, most of the list boxes, not all, but for most of the list boxes in the application, for each option, they might use an attribute. Here you see in the select, we have option, right? This is the inner text. Whatever you see is the inner text. And option, we have only tag name and inner text for each option. But sometimes in some applications, developers might use an attribute for the option. They might use an attribute that's called as a value. One of the available attributes for each option is called as a value. Mostly value might contain the short name or unique name for each option. So for each option, they might use an attribute that's called as a value. Now let me just do that. And let me open that, source code. Yeah, this is the source code for that. And I will use value attribute, like short value of the each country. AFG, like value equal to. And if in case if the inner text is too long, then this value will help us. Value might, it's kind of a map, key and value, right? Value could work as a key. Okay, so these are the value attributes, right? So value attribute for first option, value attribute for second option. So in some of the applications, for those options, we might get value attribute. That's an optional. Okay, so they might give, or they may not give. They may give or they may not give. Okay. So now if you say no, I'm not able to use visible text as it's a too lengthy, and I can't use index because the position may not be constant, it might be changing. Then I have a value attribute for the option, and that's short, and at the same time that's unique for each option. So I want to select the value by using that value attribute. I want to select an option by using value attribute. So in case if the value attribute is available for the options, you can use that value attribute. So here, what I do is I'm giving now the same application it is. I'm just changing the source code. You see now, you got the value attribute, right? I will give as AUS, select by value. So you can use select by value only when a value attribute is available. In case if the value attribute not available, then you will not be able to use that. And that's a developer's wish. Okay, so you cannot tell the developer say that no, you have to give value attribute mandatorily. You can't tell that. In case if the value attribute is available in your application, then only you use that. Select by value if required. In case if the value attribute not available, then you will not be able to use select by value. But select by value is used for selecting an option by using value attribute. In case if there is no option available with the given value attribute, like let's say, for example, if I give IND and there is no option with that value attribute, right? For India, I have not given any value. Then what will happen now? So we will get no such element exception, say that, okay, so no option found with the value IND. So these are three methods available to select the value from the list box by using select class. Select by visible text, select by index, and select by value. But okay, so we can also select the values from the list box without using select class. But we see it in the other class. How do we work with the list boxes without using a select class? For now, since we are discussing about the select class, then we have three methods to select the value from the list box. Select by value, select by index and select by visible text. Do you understand this? See, now what we have done is we have worked with a single selection list box, right? So this is the single selection list box. Now I do have multi-selection list box where I can select multiple values from that list box. Now, how do you select multiple values from the list box when it is supported? If it is multi-selection list box, how do we select multiple values? It's the same actually. So we can use the same methods to select the value from multi-selection. Now I'll use this multi-selection list box. We can use the select class only further. First, let me do one thing. I'll take that list box, favorite country list, equal to driver dot find element by dot id. Then I'm taking that multi-selection list box. Then you create a select class instance, new select, give that list box. Okay, now let me do one thing. List dot select by visible text. I'll give as a India. List dot select by visible text. Then I will select Sri Lanka. Now I'm giving the same method 2 times or 3 times. 3 values I'm giving. Select by visible text of Australia, like this I'm giving. Now let me run this code. So yeah, you can see India selected, Australia selected, and Sri Lanka selected, right? So you can see 3 values have been selected. So what happens is when you select a class, when it is multi-selection list box, whenever you use select by visible text, select by value, or select by index, what will happen when it is multi-selection list box, it will extend the selection. Whatever the value which is already selected, it will keep that selected as it is, and then it will extend the selection. And it will now first, in this case, first India will be selected, and Sri Lanka will be selected, and then Australia. All 3 values will be selected when it is multi-selection. If it is single selection list box, when you run this line, first India will be selected. When you run this line, then it will unselect India and select Sri Lanka because it's a single selection. When you run this line number 25, Sri Lanka will be unselected and Australia will be selected. So only one value will be selected. But okay, when it is multi-selection, then it will extend the selection. It will keep the existing values, whatever have selected, whatever have been already selected, and then it will make the new selection. Is it clear? How do you select multiple values? But in case if any of the value, now you say Sri Lanka I have, given, and I will give as a Ireland, or I'll just give as maybe another value here as Nepal. I'll give as a Nepal. But do we have Nepal? We don't have, right? So what will happen now? First, it will select India. Then it will try to select Nepal. Since the Nepal does not exist, it will throw exception there as no such element exception. You see India. Then when it comes to the Nepal, then it's not available. So it will throw no such element exception. So it is trying to select and it's not there, so you will get no such element exception. It's waiting for that element to be present. Since we have used implicit wait, it's waiting for 20 seconds. Yeah, now you can see that exception has been generated, no such element exception. Okay, and in case if you say no, if any of the when I'm selecting multiple values from the list box, and if any of the text option is not available, it has to ignore and then it has to select the remaining. Then you need to use exception handling. Then how to ignore the options which are not available, move on to the remaining options. Then we can discuss that during exception handling. Okay, now if you want to select multiple values, then you can give the values like this. Or if you say, no, I want to select 10 values, I don't want to give them in 10 lines, then the simple way of doing that is do one thing. You create an array. You create an array like this. So country list equal to, then you give the values here. Like let's say India, Afghanistan, then you give as England, like this. Okay, you give whatever the countries you want to select, then loop through every option. Country in country list. Select by visible text. Select by visible text of country. You can simply give like this. Now, if I run this, then what will happen? It will take this array, loop through one by one value. First, it will select India, then it will select Afghanistan, then it will select England. Do you understand this code, what I have written? So this is how we can select multiple values from the list box. Now, see, assume like I'm selecting India, Afghanistan, England, right? Now, sometimes what happens is whatever the value that you wanted to select from the list box, now England is there. England, what I do is I just add one attribute called selected. When I use selected attribute, what happens is, one minute, for which one I have used selected? Did I save this? No. I have used here. Okay. Let me do one thing. There is an attribute called selected in the for the option in the list box. That's called selected. When you selected, you see by default which option has been selected. Which option has been selected here? England. By default, England is selected, right? Now, see, I'm trying to select the England. I'm trying to select England from this list box, whereas the England was already selected. Before I selected, England was already there, already selected. Now, what will happen? I'm trying to select a value from the list box where the value is already selected. What will happen now? Will it throw any exception saying it is already selected, or it will keep as it is, or it will unselect it? It will unselect it. Okay, let me rerun again. Well, okay, so look at multi-selection list box. Yeah, you can see it selected Afghanistan and England was there. I'm sorry, I clicked on it. So England was already selected. And you can see England remains selected, right? Sorry, I clicked on it so that it's unselecting. I'll give as 2. Just see this. Yeah, I'll give it 2. I just, well, when I click on to see that India and all, then it's automatically unselecting. Yeah, you see that England was already selected. Now Afghanistan selected, England selected. That means, okay, so whatever the value that I wanted to select by using select visible text or select by value or select by index, and if the value was already selected before I use that method, then it keeps that as it is. It will not unselect, it will not throw exception, and it will keep that value remain selected. So if the value was already selected, it will remain selected. In case if the option is not available, then it will throw the exception as no such element exception. And when you are selecting multiple values in a loop, multiple values, then if any of the option not available, it will throw exception. It will stop there, right? When exception has been thrown. Or if sometimes, you say like I'm selecting 10 values, one of the values not available, then I want to ignore that unavailable option. Then I want to continue with the remaining. Then we have to discuss that. We'll discuss about that in the exception handling. Okay, so is it clear what I have told? Okay, so then we have to discuss about how do we unselect the values from the list box. At the same time, how do we understand what value has been currently selected? We need to understand how many values have been selected currently, how many options available in the list box. So that we will see it in other class. I'll stop now, then we'll see it in other class.